Linda shifted uncomfortably in her seat as her mother's car pulled up to the entrance of Pinebrook High. The school loomed large, its brick facade both inviting and intimidating. The chatter of students echoed through the parking lot as they hustled toward the entrance. Linda tightened her grip on the straps of her backpack, taking a deep breath. "It will be okay, sweetheart," her mother said softly from the driver's seat. "Just give it time. You'll make new friends." Linda forced a smile, but deep down, she wasn't so sure. Starting a new school in the middle of the semester was hard enough, but doing it as the shy, quiet girl made it feel impossible. Her heart raced as she stepped out of the car and walked through the school's tall double doors. The first day went as expected, uneventful and lonely. She kept to herself, her head down, her eyes glued to her notebook. At lunch, she found a quiet corner of the cafeteria, away from the bustling crowds. The other students seemed to barely notice her, too caught up in their own conversations and friendships to pay attention to the new girl. It wasn't until the third week that things started to change. Linda was making her way to her locker when she felt a sharp tug on her backpack. Spinning around, she came face to face with Marie, the queen bee of Pinebrook High. Marie was everything Linda was not: outgoing, confident, and popular. Flanked by her group of friends, Marie's gaze bore into Linda with a smirk. "Where'd you get that bag?" "A thrift store." Marie snickered, and her friends followed suit with laughter. Linda flushed, gripping her backpack tighter. It was old, faded from years of use, but it was the best her mother could afford. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Marie laughed again. "Don't you talk," she mocked. "Or are you too good for us?" The words stung, and Linda quickly turned away, trying to disappear into the sea of students. But from that day on, Marie made sure Linda wouldn't go unnoticed. Weeks passed, and the bullying only intensified. Marie and her friends would taunt Linda in the hallways, knock her books out of her hands, or accidentally bump into her, sending her stumbling. Whispers followed Linda wherever she went, rumors spreading about the weird new girl. Linda tried to ignore them, but it was impossible. The constant teasing made her feel smaller every day. She avoided the cafeteria and spent her lunch breaks in the library, hiding between the bookshelves where she hoped no one would find her. At home, Linda put on a brave face for her mother, not wanting to worry her. But inside, she was crumbling. She started to dread school, counting the hours until she could retreat to the safety of her room. One afternoon, after an especially bad day when Marie had humiliated her in front of the entire math class, Linda locked herself in the bathroom, her chest heaving with silent sobs. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, wondering why she wasn't strong enough to stand up for herself. Why couldn't she just say something? The next day, Linda sat in the library as usual, her head buried in a book, trying to block out the world. She was so absorbed that she didn't hear someone approach until a voice startled her. "Mind if I sit here?" Linda looked up to see a tall boy with messy dark hair and kind eyes. He wore a faded band t-shirt and had a skateboard tucked under his arm. She recognized him. His name was Eddie, and he was in her history class. Sure," Linda mumbled, surprised that anyone wanted to sit with her. Eddie sat down, glancing at the book she was reading. "You like poetry?" Linda nodded, unsure of what to say. Eddie didn't seem to mind her silence. He pulled a book from his backpack and started reading beside her. For a few moments, they sat in comfortable quiet, and for the first time in weeks, Linda didn't feel completely alone. Over the next few days, Eddie continued to join Linda in the library. Slowly, they began to talk, first about books, then about music, and eventually about life. Linda learned that Eddie wasn't like the other kids at Pinebrook. He wasn't interested in popularity or fitting in. He'd moved to the town 2 years ago and had been an outsider himself for a long time. I don't get why people like Marie are so awful, Eddie said one afternoon, his voice filled with frustration. They act like being mean makes them better than everyone else. It's pathetic. Linda didn't respond, but his words stayed with her. For the first time, she began to see Marie's cruelty for what it really was, a mask for her own insecurities. One morning, Linda was walking to class when she saw Marie and her friends waiting for her at the end of the hallway. Her stomach dropped, but instead of turning away, she kept walking, her head held high. As she approached, Marie sneered. Well, if it isn't the little mouse. Linda stopped, her heart pounding in her chest. She took a deep breath and met Marie's gaze. Why do you do this? The question caught Marie off guard. She blinked, her smirk faltering for a split second before she regained her composure. What are you talking about? Why do you feel the need to hurt people? Linda's voice was quiet but steady. Does it make you feel better about yourself? Marie's friends exchanged glances, their laughter dying down. Marie opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. For the first time, Linda saw her as she really was, someone who used others' pain to hide her own. Without waiting for a response, Linda turned and walked away, her heart racing but lighter than it had been in weeks. Word of Linda standing up to Marie spread quickly. The whispers in the hallways weren't about her anymore, they were about Marie. People began to see through her act, and slowly, Marie's power over the school began to crumble. She still had her followers, but their numbers were dwindling, and their taunts grew quieter. Linda, on the other hand, found herself growing stronger. She didn't care about popularity or fitting in, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to be seen. She and Eddie continued to spend time together, and soon, a small group of friends formed around them, people who, like Linda, had been outsiders but found strength in each other. One afternoon, as Linda was leaving school, she saw Marie sitting alone on the front steps. Her usual group of friends was nowhere in sight. For a moment, Linda considered walking past her, but something stopped her. Linda approached cautiously. Hey, she said quietly. Marie looked up, her eyes filled with something Linda hadn't expected, vulnerability. What do you want? Marie asked, her voice defensive but lacking its usual bite. Linda hesitated, then sat down beside her. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Marie looked at her, confused. For what? For whatever it is that made you feel like you had to act the way you did, Linda said. I know you're not really that person. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, to Linda's surprise, Marie nodded, a single tear slipping down her cheek. Thanks, Marie whispered, her voice small. Linda stood up, giving her a soft smile before walking away. As Linda walked home that day, she realized something important. The people who hurt others are often hurting themselves. It doesn't excuse their behavior, but understanding it can make standing up to them less terrifying. The bullying had made Linda stronger, and though she still had challenges ahead, she knew she could face them. And as for Marie, maybe, just maybe, she would find her own way out of the darkness she'd created. Moral lesson from the story: true strength isn't about tearing others down, it's about lifting yourself and others up, even in the face of adversity. Sometimes, the ones who hurt the most are the ones who need kindness the most.